Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today, we're popping the hood on what I like to call a massive secret hiding in plain sight in the used car market. We're talking about the incredibly alluring, budget-friendly, but potentially super dangerous trap of buying a used Hyundai Theta 2 vehicle. I mean, you see these cars literally everywhere, right? They look pristine, they're packed with modern features, and that price tag, man, it can be incredibly tempting. But before you hand over your hard-earned cash, we really need to make sure you aren't accidentally buying a 2-ton paperweight.
Okay, let's dive right into this. It's just a harsh reality of the used car market that a sparkling clean exterior, freshly vacuumed seats, and a surprisingly low price can completely hide a complete mechanical nightmare. Picture this. You're looking at a screen, comparing prices, and thinking, wow, I just found the deal of the century. The seller swears up and down it drives perfectly fine, but with these specific vehicles, a cheap price tag is just completely meaningless if the engine has a dark history. You absolutely have to check the engine story before you buy the car.
Now, what's really interesting here is the massive contrast between what a hopeful buyer sees and what a seasoned mechanic sees. As a buyer, you're probably seeing a smart, practical family vehicle, a Sonata, tons of space and comfort. A Santa Fe Sport, you get that coveted SUV room without the huge price tag. A Tucson just looks incredibly practical. But to a mechanic, these specific cars can literally be ticking time bombs. They aren't looking at that shiny infotainment screen. They're looking for engine-bearing risks, hidden diagnostic codes like P1326, and the looming, terrifying threat of an insanely expensive, full-blown engine replacement. So, let's get super specific here so you know exactly what to look for when you're browsing listings. We're not saying you should automatically avoid every single used Hyundai out there. Not at all. The risk is heavily concentrated in the Theta 2 engine. Specifically, you've got to be cautious of the 2.0-liter turbo GDI and the 2.4-liter GDI engines. And GDI just stands for gasoline direct injection, by the way. You're going to find these power plants in specific models and years. Namely, the 2011 to 2019 Hyundai Sonatas, the 2013 to 2018 Santa Fe Sports, and certain years of the Tucson, specifically the 2014 to 2019 models. If you're looking at one of these, you really need to be on high alert.
So the whole thing really boils down to one golden rule. Do not buy the price. Check the engine. Think about it. A fantastic deal instantly becomes the absolute worst financial mistake you can make if the engine fails a week after you drive it off the lot. The price tag is literally just the bait. The engine's actual health is the real catch here.
All right, let's break down the actual core mechanical flaw. The main problem with these Hyundai Theta 2 engines is an extreme engine bearing risk. And look, this isn't some minor cosmetic flaw or a finicky radio dial. Bearings are absolutely critical internal components. When these bearings wear out or fail prematurely, the engine literally loses its ability to rotate smoothly. It starts to knock. And let me be clear, this isn't a problem that just magically fixes itself. It escalates from a knocking sound to complete, catastrophic engine failure, leaving you completely stranded and staring down a massive, massive repair bill.
To actually spot this before it happens, you need to know a little bit of technical jargon, specifically this diagnostic trouble code, or DTC, P1326. If you plug a scanner into one of these cars and see this, it is the ultimate red flag. This code doesn't just pop up for no reason. It's triggered by abnormal engine noise and is a direct, critical indicator of a potential catastrophic engine bearing failure. In a lot of cases, it can also come with a super frustrating no crank or no start condition where the car simply refuses to turn over at all.
And this brilliantly illustrates a trap that so many buyers fall right into. A seller might casually tell you, oh, that check engine light? Yeah, it's just a faulty sensor. Or, oh, it just needs a quick software update, no big deal. Listen to me, never, ever believe that if you see this code. P1326 is absolutely not a code to ignore, and it is almost never just a simple, cheap fix. It is literally the car's computer screaming at you that the engine's internal components are failing.
Now, let's move on and see how this builds into our second major issue, low oil and sludge. These engines are incredibly, almost notoriously, sensitive to oil maintenance. Poor oil maintenance reduces the essential cooling and lubrication inside the engine. When that happens, you get internal wear, carbon deposits, and this thick, damaging sludge. And guess what? This severely accelerates the bearing failure we just talked about. So the car might look like it just rolled out of a pristine showroom on the outside, but underneath that oil cap, it can be a sludgy, totally neglected mess that's actively destroying the engine from the inside out.
So here's a rule of thumb you really need to memorize before walking onto any used car lot. The oil record matters way more than the sales pitch. Physically checking the dipstick yourself and demanding the actual oil change records, those are completely non-negotiable steps. I mean, one oil change receipt from last week means absolutely nothing. You need to see a clear historical pattern of proper, consistent maintenance over the life of the car.
And that perfectly brings us to the third big problem. We've talked about the mechanics, sure, but we really need to talk about the hidden financial danger of buying one of these cars without the proper documentation. The hidden cost here isn't just buying physical engine parts. It is the crippling uncertainty and the absolute lack of a paper trail to protect you when things inevitably go wrong. You see, so many buyers walk right into this trap with a massive, kind of naive assumption. They think, well, if this engine has a known issue, Hyundai will just easily replace it for free. But the reality? Oh, it's completely different. Buying the car first and hoping to just solve the engine problem later is a terrible, terrible strategy. The actual service process for an engine replacement involves rigorous inspections, taking photos, checking codes, physically testing bearing clearances, and, here's the kicker, requiring strict proof of past maintenance before any approval is given. If you don't have that paperwork, yeah, you might be footing that massive bill all by yourself.
So what does this all mean for us? How do we actually protect ourselves? Well, I want to empower you with this concrete 7-step pre-purchase checklist. Seriously, I highly recommend grabbing a screenshot of this right now. First, confirm the exact engine type. Is it that 2.0-liter turbo or the 2.4-liter GDI? Second, plug in a diagnostic tool and scan for codes, specifically keeping an eye out for that dreaded P1326. Third, absolutely insist on listening to the car on a cold start. Fourth, physically check the oil dipstick and look under the cap for sludge. Fifth, aggressively ask for those service records. Sixth, test drive it under load. Get it right up to highway speeds to see if it hesitates at all. And finally, step 7, always get a pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic. Please don't gamble. Get a pro to look at it.
Now, I want to run through a quick sequence of absolute non-negotiable deal breakers. Ready? If you're looking at one of these cars and the seller dismissively says the check engine light is, quote, nothing to worry about,
Or if you turn the key for a cold start and the engine produces literally any kind of ticking, knocking, or metal-on-metal sound.
or if you pull that dipstick out and it is bone dry, which is a huge indicator of severe prolonged neglect, you walk away. Period. End of story. Do not hesitate, and definitely do not try to negotiate a lower price to somehow compensate for it. If absolutely any of those 3 conditions are met, you abandon the deal immediately. It is just not worth the financial risk, and it is certainly not worth sacrificing your peace of mind.
Let's take a look at what actually separates a high-risk gamble from a safer choice. A high-risk buy is mostly defined by what's missing, right? No records, suspiciously cleared codes, and a price that is just flat out too good to be true. A safer choice, on the other hand, really comes down to one recurring word: proof. Proof of clean oil maintenance, proof of campaign inspections and software updates, even proof of a documented engine replacement if it failed previously. Honestly, the trim level, the fancy wheels, the nice screen, none of that stuff matters. The safest car is always the one with undeniable proof of its history.
And that brings us to our final verdict for this explainer. If the engine history is unclear, you walk away. A cheap Hyundai becomes the absolute most expensive mistake you can make the second that engine seizes up. Inspect the clean ones carefully, completely avoid the bad ones, and always remember, no proof, no deal. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on the next time you're browsing car listings. Will you gamble your savings on a cheap price tag? Or will you step up, ask the hard questions, and demand the proof that actually protects your wallet? Be a cautious, empowered buyer out there, guys. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.